Welcome, my 135 subscribers, everyone on Wrestling Reddit, and all of you fucking megastars who just go to business for yourself and bury former champions. Welcome to my review of AEW Dynamite, presented by Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, for the August 17 show. Let's begin. So we start the show off with maybe the best segment we've had. The last, great segment was MJF, of course. But I think this is a whole lot better. Honestly. Because in that one, MJF had to resort to, shooting on the company. He had to, bury the company. He had to, go for, a lot of, shock value. Instead of, having a purely, wrestling promo. Punk did reference a lot of his past, a lot of things from other companies, but we really don't get a shoot for the main program. We just have him pretty much shooting on Hangman Page, which is absolutely unrelated and unplanned as reported. But for the confrontation he had with Moxley, it was pretty much in universe and wasn't a detriment to the company. That's why I like it better. And as for delivery, Punk is second to none on the mic. And just the fucking wit the guy has, the dude probably looks at social media comments, in order to reference them on the show. And I think it really helps the crowd who pretty much is obsessed with social media get into the show even more. Or at least get into the segment even more. Because first off, CM Punk comes out, he has his title, but before he gets to the meat and potatoes of the entire segment, he first goes to business for himself. He calls out Adam Page, but since Page wasn't clued into this, the dude just sat back in catering eating chicken pot pie, according to John Silver's Instagram post or Twitter post. But yeah, apparently this is a response to the comments that Adam Page made about CM Punk, or it could be a work. It could be a work to get Punk to turn heel, set up for MJF's return, and just have heel Punk grace our television or computer screens or phone screens once again. So yeah, it got pretty uncomfortable when he asked Page to apologize to him. I think it was because of something that Page said about advice from older wrestlers. I think it's something backstage because all of the things that they had on screen, all of the promos that they cut about each other weren't really that offensive if someone would listen to them. Apparently CM Punk wasn't too pleased with this, and so we get this part right here. But after this, we finally get to the main part of this whole segment, and that's about the interim title situation. So Punk basically trash talks Moxley a lot. He goes for a lot of deep cuts. He references a lot of stuff in his career, compares Mox to a lot of people with the same name, former stables and such. The dude goes in multiple directions with this. So the first big shot that Punk takes is saying that he's the third best member of BCC and that it's been a recurring thing in his career. It's meant to reference the Shield, and Fightful says, especially coming from Punk, who buried the shit out of Roman Reigns, or at least disregarded him constantly. And now Punk says that Mox is the worst, and it makes it sting more. It has more impact. And yeah, of course, this got the crowd all riled up. This was an incredibly into the business sort of crowd. It's a smarky crowd. They get all the references. Of course, this is AEW. And then he goes on to bury Eddie Kingston. They just had a feud a couple of months ago. They still hate each other. So Punk just says that he's the third best Eddie that he's faced in the ring. So I guess number 1 is Eddie Guerrero, number 3 is Eddie Edwards, and then number 3 is Eddie Kingston. And then he's also the second best Kingston that he's shared a locker room with. And we all know the other Kingston. It's fucking Kofi. Those two are tight. And then he tops this off by saying that John Moxley isn't even the first John that he's gonna beat in Chicago for a world championship. So Punk then tries to say a couple of more things, but then Mox's music hits, and then he comes out from the crowd, but then CM Punk, fucking genius, fucking pays attention to the show. He references how long it takes for Mox to get in the ring. Punk does snow angels as Mox is slowly making his way into the ring. So I really love this attention to detail and just little things that you could make fun about the other person with. So after getting destroyed by Punk verbally, Mox throws in some pretty decent shots of his own. He basically tells Punk that he's all talk and that his mouth writes checks that his body can't cash. And then he does a little leg jiggle in reference to Punk's injury. And in true Blackpool Combat Club fashion, in true Moxley fashion, he buries mic and promo work and puts over in-ring action. And then it's when he starts talking about the interim championship, or the championship situation between the two of them, that Punk starts replying. I love that Punk isn't just standing there taking all of this verbal abuse from Mox. I love that after Mox says something, he just makes some snidey, fucking snarky comments. Mox then says that Punk's title doesn't mean shit. Punk makes fun of Mox for that. And then Mox buries both of their belts, saying that none have any value until one beats the other. And then Mox throws down his belt. Fucking amazing move. Genius. And then Mox goes about preaching fighting spirit, that he's the heart and soul of AEW. And then Punk does a pretty heelish thing. He tells Mox that he can be the heart and soul as long as Punk is the dollars and cents. But then Mox just punctuates his entire point by basically telling us what Eddie Kingston, MJF, Hangman Page has been telling us from the start, that Punk is just here for the money. And then Punk's retort is kind of not on the same level as this. This has been a stinging point to Punk for months now, ever since his return. But then he comes back with just a memeable sort of John Moxley thing where supposedly he bleeds all the time, which is very true, but it's not of the same weight. So then they start fighting. The fighting looks kind of hokey. Definitely these two guys are better on the mic than doing brawls where obviously wrestling is fake, right? But just the shots they're doing here aren't even simulated punches. They're completely fake looking punches. At least do some stiff shots, just like in Pro Wrestling Noah. But yeah, this gets the point across. And then they send out guards to separate Mox and Punk, keep them away from each other until next week or until the pay-per-view. I mean, the match is announced for next week, and I think that's a stupid decision, but it might end in a non-finish, and all will be forgiven. But yeah, Tony Khan sends some staff dudes to separate them. This sort of doesn't work since there's a prolonged period of the guards failing. They separate him again, and it just goes on and on. Mox gets his hands on Punk, Punk gets his hands on Mox, but there is no prolonged continuous fighting. It's always cut off, and the fans are left wanting for more. But yeah, I think just spontaneously it was a surprise. I think even for Punk, I think both of these dudes thought that the match was gonna be on the pay-per-view, but Tony Khan booked it for next week. And if they crown a winner there, I think that's a huge missed opportunity to give up a box office match at a pay-per-view where people have to pay for the match. Like, the pay-per-views are about like 1,000 Philippine pesos. That's about like, actually like just like $17, $18. And I guess it's like more expensive in America. Prices are adjusted based on like the income of a place, but it's money all the same. And if they pay off the match like immediately next week after like your best segment in like the whole year, for like the whole year, that would be a stupid move. I would take pay-per-view buys over TV ratings like any day. I would rather have like some extra 1,000 tickets sold, possibly a sellout, and possibly the biggest crowd that AEW has ever had. Possibly. Over some like measly TV ratings. That won't really mean much since it might get you to like 1 million viewers, but I mean, it's just gonna go down after like the next week. So just take the pay-per-view buys, man. Take the extra money from the buys, fuck TV, and this is automatically segment of the night. So after this, we get a promo by Powerhouse Hobbs. He finally states the reason why he's attacking Ricky Starks, and it's because Ricky Starks failed to keep the FTW Championship, which Powerhouse Hobbs was hired to do, and that it was okay for Starks to lose the belt. And yeah, this reasoning is like okay, but a better reason would have been just to like break out of the faction, basically. It's just to like not be the second fiddle anymore. That would have been enough. So yeah, alright promo, but I think Hobbs had more personality when he cut promos with Starks in the crowd. Like, I think he needs to get some of that back. And then he mentions something about the factory, and I guess they're gonna be the fodder for Starks and Hobbs to like gain heat on. So yeah, alright promo. Reasoning for his attack was okay, but not the best. So after this, we have Bryan Danielson against Daniel Garcia in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And true to their promos, these two have just like a technical ass match. So the first fall happens after 9 minutes. And during this time, they had a technical ass match. Like, they were mostly trying to submit each other. We get some grapples, some suplexes, like an outside dive, and some strike battles. But this was mostly trying to submit the other. And shit, Garcia managed to like legitimately win against Bryan Danielson without outside interference. And I love how this happens because after going for like a Blackpool Combat Club like elbow thing, Garcia tries to lock in a sharpshooter or like the Dragon Slayer. Danielson counters with a triangle choke or a Hell's Gate, and then Garcia just like picks him up, sets him up for a pile driver very slowly, and then he pile drives Danielson really hard on the ground, and then Danielson sells it very well because of his history with head injuries. And then Garcia puts on a modified Dragon Sleeper for the feint victory. So first fall goes to Garcia via feint submission. He puts him to sleep, basically. And then we have this like awesome thing that I didn't know about 2 out of 3 falls matches, because when FTR and the Briscoes faced each other, they were given time to recover. But here, Bryce Remsburg started counting to 10. And because Danielson was made to feint, he had trouble getting up. And this really started the second fall very strong, because Danielson gets up at 9 very slowly, and then Daniel Garcia, like a smart wrestler, attacks Danielson like at 9, just as he's about to get up. Like in true heel or like Blackpool Combat Club fashion, and a little bit of Cobra Kai, he struck first and then he struck hard. And yeah, I totally forgot to say that like Ricky Steamboat is like the special guest timekeeper, and like he does have a backstage appearance like later, but we got like one shot of him on the table, basically. He's just there to like show up. But he did look pretty enthusiastic. So this second fall starts with Daniel Garcia Domination. The dude even does like Danielson's taunts while like stepping on his head. And then I fucking love the selling here because after like a while, after like Garcia continues to like fucking dominate Danielson, he like pulls off the matting and exposes the concrete of the arena. And then after DDTing Danielson on it, he then sells his back and then proceeds to return to the ring to get a countout victory. And then at this point, Danielson is cut open, like on his head. He's being counted out again. And as he's like rolling into the ring, Garcia strikes first, strikes hard, and just keeps going for Danielson's head. And it's kind of funny, and I like it, that after we have this like serious, like realistically sold sort of like technical match, Danielson hulks up, but not quite Hulk Hogan, because the fucking drama here continues. Because Garcia like catches him as he's doing the kicks. He tries to put him in a Dragon Sleeper. Danielson counters, and just when we think Danielson finally regained control, Garcia has him in another Dragon Sleeper. And just when things are looking very bleak for Danielson, technical masterclass, he manages to like push Garcia's shoulders to the mat without having much control of this second fall and gets the pinfall 1, 2, 3 for the second fall. This totally comes out of nowhere and then shocks Garcia. And I don't think we ever see this. Like Danielson barely had any control of like this whole second fall for like a 6-minute stretch, and then they decide to give him the second fall out of nowhere. So you know what, so far the 2 spots of the match are the finishes of each fall, and I usually don't give finishes the like top 1 spot of the match. And it's awesome that in this match Garcia is made to look super fucking strong. He dominated most of the match. And then the only way that Danielson regains control is because of a Garcia mistake where he like puts himself in the Tree of Woe position, leaving himself wide open to be kicked to shit by Danielson. And this is followed up by an avalanche German suplex. Great spot. And after this, Danielson finally has control. And then we have like a pretty funny spot, but I kind of like it. It's like them pulling each other to hit the post. This was really funny, and they made it look effective. So at this point, I would describe this match to be like the sort of thing that Jim Cornette would enjoy, or like older fans would enjoy. They don't do dangerous stuff. I mean, they bleed, but the "This is awesome" chant is elicited by Danielson beating the count out. And now we get like storytelling all around. They're both bleeding. They visibly have a conversation. They're like trash talking each other. And then they have like a kneeling chop fight. And this then turns into just Bryan Danielson no selling offense from Garcia. And then transitioning into like a meditating position after every hit. This was pretty funny, but pretty cool as well. And after Garcia's quote-unquote baby hits, he gets elbowed hard by Danielson, and then he flips him off. This match is so fucking slow, but it's so fucking good. If you want to know where the storytelling is in AEW, this is it right here. And not to be outdone, Garcia does like a no-selling thing as well, and then he regains back control when he blocks Danielson's kick and then lariats him in the back of the head. It was hard, but not as hard as Danielson's. And then we get a sharpshooter countered into a label lock, countered to a pin, and then after a Katsuhiko Nakajima to Tetsuya Endo like slap, Garcia just hits both triggers and then steals Danielson's finisher. He Busaiku knees him. And then we get another awesome spot. And it's not even dangerous. It's just them elbowing each other while having a test of strength. And then for the third fall, for the finish of the match, after trying to like pile driver Danielson again, like they basically go for the same sequence in the first fall, where during like a triangle choke, Garcia picks Danielson up, he goes for like a pile driver, but Danielson pulls him down, puts him in a label lock. Garcia almost escapes, but after a good old Blackpool Combat Club, like clubs to the head, some elbows to the head, Danielson locks on the label lock and then gets Garcia to pass out. Fucking amazing ending, amazing match. They went like 25 minutes on like a Dynamite. It's like a special Dynamite, but not really. It's just like sponsored by Game of Thrones. But shit, they went for 25 minutes. And this is exactly how I book in TEW. But yeah, this whole third fall here was just like storytelling 100%. With the no-selling, the stealing of moves, and then the callback to the first fall. This third fall like put it over the top. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So number 3 is the surprise pin by Danielson to get the second fall. I really love this, and it doesn't really happen that much. It's a pin that like comes out of nowhere by a dude who did not have control of the match at all, who was on the verge of losing. Okay, so the second spot of the match is the highest impact spot of the entire match, and it's the Avalanche German Suplex that is then followed up by like a flying horizontal dropkick by Danielson. And then for the number 1 spot of the match, it's the finish. It's a callback to the first fall, but it goes the other way around. So fucking good. So this match is a pay-per-view only main event. It's that fucking good. Go watch it. Even if you're not a fan of AEW, I swear to God, this is a match that you would enjoy. So after this, Danielson tries to shake Garcia's hand. He kind of welcomes him to the Blackpool Combat Club, kind of. Commentary make it clear to Chris Jericho, who's like sitting with them, that you're about to lose your dude. So right before like Garcia shakes Danielson's hand, Jericho attacks Danielson, and then they have like a confrontation in the ring, student and master, Garcia and Chris Jericho. And this was like almost like a face turn. You know what? It was a face turn. Like not completely, because he didn't attack Chris Jericho. He's still his like boss, but he's like turning over to the light. And the look on Chris Jericho's face is just next level. Like the facial expressions and like just the acting by this dude like conveys the message very clearly. What did you just do? So we have Daniel Garcia here about to turn face. The crowd chants, "You're a wrestler." And then he doesn't complete the face turn yet. He doesn't pick Danielson up. He leaves with Chris Jericho begrudgingly. Oh my God, storytelling all throughout the place, coming out from every orifice of this match. So don't ever fucking tell me that AEW does not have storytelling. I think this might be match of the night. I know Kenny Omega is like gonna return and like they're gonna have like a 6-man tag team match, but this is it right here. This might have been the best match in weeks, and this would have been better suited to be the main event. So yeah, after this we have a backstage segment between Swerve in Our Glory and Private Party. And we finally have Private Party back. They're going to go for the belts. They're probably going to lose, but we have them back. And they're very charismatic. They do their best in this segment right here. But they were basically meant to lose because Swerve in Our Glory basically makes fun of their like past failures in AEW to gain the tag team championships. Like these guys were supposed to be the hottest young team to like enter AEW. They were an original team. I think they were put in a higher position in terms of potential than Jurassic Express. Like at the start of AEW, I thought these guys were going to be the first tag team champions. And you know what? It's nice to see this team back. And I think we're going to get maybe an AEW Originals against former WWE guys, faction versus faction led by MJF, very fucking soon. And I think after what happened earlier, it would make sense to have Hangman Page join up with MJF. It would be like a 2-man power trip, basically. And I'm so fucking excited. And Keith and Swerve can be in like the WWE faction. So yeah, good segment, but not the best. So after this, we have Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling coming out. Basically a comedy act. And then he gets taken out by Jon Moxley. Poor Tony Nese. But you know what? This might get him into the title picture. I mean, not into the title picture, but we might get a match between him and like Punk or Mox. Or maybe like a tag team match with him and Josh Woods. That would be pretty cool. But what happens here is something I kind of don't agree with. I think the first part of like the Mox and Punk like brawl was enough. It got the message across, but they do it again here and they don't get to touch each other. Like they get pulled apart right away. Like the most entertaining thing that happens here is Claudio just picks Mox up. He picks up the AEW champion like a child by the torso and then like gets him off the floor and like contains him. And Yuta is just there to like be the voice of reason. You know what? Claudio just like carrying Mox, like containing him, is enough for this segment. It's still not the best of the night and could have been done without, but it's pretty funny. We could have had other people on the card, but instead we have this. So yeah. So after this is maybe the number 2 segment of the night, and it's like JAS. It's the fallout of the Garcia situation. We have Jericho, Matt Menard, and Cool Hand Ange. They're being interviewed by Tony Schiavone, but they're interrupted by Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And this guy can still cut a promo. It would be awesome if like he still had a match, but he's kind of looking out of shape. But I love how they both call back to their match at WrestleMania. They cite their history, and then Jericho tells him to fuck off. But before the segment ends, Cool Hand Ange, the guy who gets beaten up in JAS all the time, decides to go face to face with Steamboat. He tries to strong arm him, but then Steamboat chops the shit out of him, making all of the nostalgia fans cream their pants. So yeah, great segment. And I hope this isn't the last we see of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So after this, we get a quote-unquote match between the Gun Club and the Varsity Blondes. And I don't like how the Varsity Blondes have turned into just like jobbers. They're like AEW TV regulars, and now they're jobbers. Fuck! What you doing, Tony Khan? These guys could have had like a nice like 6-minute match if you just didn't have that like second segment with Mox and Punk. This sucks. And then the main point of this whole thing happens right after the victory, where the ass boys turn on their dad. Like Billy Gunn tries to congratulate them. He gives them a hug, but then Stokely Hathaway shows up on the stage, and then the ass boys just like beat their dad. And then the Acclaimed save him, and shit, we get the feud. We get the continuation of the feud that I think is gonna be the Acclaimed versus the baddies. And sadly, I think the Acclaimed are gonna lose. But at least we get some scissoring with Daddy Ass again. So yeah, we get another turn. I guess blood is not thicker than water because Billy Gunn's like foster sons love him more than his real ones. And they save his ass. And then we get some pretty like just okay crowd reactions. It's not as loud as like it was like a couple of like weeks ago, like the last month, but it's okay. But the direction that this story is going is like kind of weird. It's like turns in succession, but who knows, it might turn out good. And Ass Boys and the Acclaimed will always be funny. So after this, we get a video package with Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt. It's pretty meh. It's like alright. It's them hyping up a 6-man tag team match. And the punctuation mark here is just like Satnam Singh versus Wardlow. It's hyping up their encounter, and it's okay. It might be like the worst segment of the night, but this feud still intrigues me. So yeah, and I still love Sanjay Dutt. Great performer. So like after an hour of Dynamite, we get like 26 minutes of wrestling. But yeah, that match was really good. And the best segment of the night is in the first half, so I can forgive it. So after this, we get like a short backstage segment hyping up one of the Trios tournament matches. It's Death Triangle against Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. And it's alright. Pac is a great promo, and the Lucha Bros managed to like complement this pretty well. Phoenix does some like sweeping of the title, while Penta is looking menacing right beside him. So yeah, not really much substance, but it did its job. And then surprisingly, we get another segment. Another non-wrestling segment. And it's the continuation to the Jungle Boy and Christian feud. And honestly, this has not gone up the highest of its heights. I mean, when Jungle Boy didn't show up yet, when he was out, things were a lot better. Christian had teeth. He was Captain Charisma 100%. He was dropping nukes. He was arguably better than MJF at the time, but now, yeah, they sort of neutered him a little bit. This all went downhill for me when they turned Luchasaurus face again and when Jungle Boy returned. This did rise up slightly when Jungle Boy tried to murder Christian with a car. But yeah, it's just not the same as it was when Christian was cutting promos on Jungle Boy's family. So yeah, this segment right here is Jungle Boy and Christian finally fighting it out. And Christian trying one more time to turn Jungle Boy back to his side and use him again basically. And yeah, I like that Luchasaurus was removed since things weren't as even as it is now. So I like that they took Luchasaurus out of this feud for the meantime, since it just gives us Christian unfiltered, without fear against Jungle Boy. And what he does here is he tries to take him back. He tries to reform the faction, but the crowd see through this. Jungle Boy sees through this. And then Jungle Boy kicks his ass. They fight. We have some back and forth, but Jungle Boy pretty much wins this. And I think this is a better brawl than we had with Punk and Mox, because here they actually got to touch. They actually got to do stuff instead of just fake punches. And yeah, I think this is brawl-wise, this is better than the Mox and Punk. But promo-wise, that one blows this out of the water. So we won't really be remembering this years to come. And then so after this, we have a promo with Wardlow, basically the former Pinnacle without MJF. And it's them just responding to Satnam Singh, Sanjay Dutt, and Jay Lethal, building up to the match. And clearly, you could feel these guys are going to win. There's no way Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt have even a snowball's chance in winning. But yeah, Dax challenges Jay Lethal to a match next week. Jay's probably going to win that to gain contention against Wardlow's title. And yeah, it's going to be a match. It's going to be probably really good because that's two veterans right there. That's a current best tag team wrestler in the world right now. And Jay Lethal is still a great wrestler, but character-wise, he hasn't reached what he previously reached in previous promotions. But yeah, hopefully this feud turns into something. Hopefully the Wardlow versus Jay Lethal match will be better than the one they had before. Have it more evenly matched. And so yeah, after this, we have a match between Kylan King and Toni Storm. So shit, Kylan King is 6'1", and she looks like a future star. And she's not like a Jade Cargill who's all look. She can actually go in the ring as well. She's actually better. And then I think the strength and the height can be used in order to make the matches look more fluid than women's matches usually do. So Toni Storm, we already know the deal with her. Extremely charismatic wrestler. Sort of relies on her opponents to have good matches. She uses an Alabama slam that pretty much tanks her value. And as for Kylan King, I'm seeing a higher ceiling with her. Again, like I said, the strength really helps make her opponents look better. She can take the moves better. She has a unique style among the women. She's the only one who's fully power based. She could be a Cesaro or a Claudio of the women's division, as seen with this awesome Spinebuster that she does. And not only that, but she's also a lot more agile. I mean, she's more agile than Toni Storm. A lot more agile on her feet, especially when she's falling down and stuff. after doing diving moves as well as like doing outside dives, she lands a lot better. She also does nice pro kicks like Jade Cargill, and I think she is a better power wrestler than Jade Cargill. So yeah, but the match ends with Toni Storm winning, of course. Bigger star, higher name value. She does this with like the running hip attack, a tornado DDT, and then a pendulum DDT for the 3 count for the win. And then we see like Thunder Rosa looking at the match like being happy for her friend. So yeah, let's move on to the spots of the match. So number 3 is the Spinebuster that Kylan King does. I mean, it's kind of like a Spinebuster. It's like a powerbomb. It's like a cross between the two. Looks really good. Gets a lot of height in there. And yeah, Kylan King can be a really good power women's wrestler. And AEW should totally keep her. Like, that is a high potential wrestler right there. And then as for the spot number 2, it's this like top rope spot where Kylan King is trying to do this like avalanche backdrop, but then Toni Storm turns it into a crossbody, and this is the highest spot of the match. And yeah, I forgot to say, these women did not botch the whole match, so that's plus points for them. Especially with this spot right here, that's like pretty hard to do. And plus points too, Toni Storm didn't do an Alabama Slam. That should be an honorable mention. And then for the top spot of the match, it's like this opening sort of like counterfest. They really show their agility here, but Kylan King is just like a notch better. And yeah, this isn't like much. This isn't very spectacular, but I love like counters. And then it ends in like a flying knee while Toni Storm is on the apron. This gets her on the floor. Kylan King tries to do like a hanging drop kick while like hanging off of the ropes. She like gets to the floor, and then Toni Storm does a tornado DDT and gains control of the match. So like that's how this thing ends. It's just like a rapid succession of moves that they actually make look really good, that I only see the dudes usually do. And so yeah, this match is pretty good. It's TV undercard, pay-per-view undercard, with like a lot of positives. And yeah, Kylan King really showed her stuff here, and I think she could be like a Chris Statlander. Or maybe better. We'll see. Okay, so after this, we have like a video package of like a promo battle between the best friends and the Trustbusters. And yeah, this is pretty funny. Best friends, funny as always. Trustbusters, I don't know. I mean, they're kind of like silly and are like kind of like a holding faction for Brock Jr. But yeah, facing up against the best friends, they're probably gonna lose. Small guy with like the upside down visor will probably let them down. But yeah, I'm probably gonna review Rampage too, so we'll see. But this is a pretty good segment. Hypes up their trios match. I love the ending where the best friends just like fuck up their whole like end routine. They all say different words, and yeah, pretty funny, but it's not the best. Nothing can beat CM Punk versus Mox to open the show, or even like the Chris Jericho and like Ricky Steamboat encounter. So after this, we get like the usual like promotion for Rampage and stuff. We have like a hype video for Hook and Zach Clayton. We all know who's gonna win there. Like we get a whole lot of previews leading up to the main event. And for the main event, we have La Facción Ingobernables with Andrade El Idolo, Rush, and Dragon Lee against the Young Bucks and their mystery partner. So I think we all pretty much guessed it. It's Kenny Omega, of course. I like this sort of like special sort of like introductory statement that Justin Roberts does. Brandon Cutler gives him like a piece of paper, and then he says like really like detailed and personal stuff about Kenny Omega. The crowd like feel it like from the start, and it was pretty obvious. Tony Khan spoiled this already. They're probably gonna win the tournament. I hope not. But yeah, the crowd from when Justin Roberts started talking, they all felt it. They all made a lot of noise. They all knew it was Kenny Omega. And then shit, that's exactly what we got. So Kenny Omega enters with Don Callis, who joins commentary, and Michael Nakazawa in his new role as like translator or something, like a backstage role. And good for Naka, he's also like a manager. And yeah, he like suits the role. If he can't get TV time anymore, why the fuck not translate shows in Japanese for New Japan fans? So yeah, Kenny comes in with like a coat and like a black sort of like tight-fitting shirt and a shoulder support. I don't know if he needs this or this is storytelling, but this is really effective and like easing Kenny back in, like sort of like nerfing him in order to like not have him like dominate everyone being fresh from like a championship and stuff. It also gives the fans something to like be invested in. Like whenever Kenny lands on his shoulder, it's equivalent to like when Danielson lands on his head. It gives us like an extra thing to care about. And I love this like character building here. I think I mentioned this last week in Quake of the Lake. I mentioned that I think Dragon Lee should be like the baby face of the team. And shit, they do it here. They don't just turn him heel right away. He shakes Kenny Omega's hand, being like co-workers in New Japan. He then tries to shake Matt Jackson's hand, like maybe still having like a lucha like fear, having faced the Lucha Bros over and over again. And then he shakes Nick Jackson's hand, to the dismay of his teammates. And if they decide to keep Dragon Lee, I love this like dynamic that they have where they have like one good guy and just two assholes, just like two dicks. But they turn on him after the match, and I'll explain my thoughts on that later. So Dragon Lee starts off the match, pretty much being cannon fodder. Nothing really much happens in this like first salvo. They just like do high flying stuff. Him and Nick Jackson, the two high flyers of the group, they get the upper hand on Dragon Lee, like him and Matt Jackson, and then we get the setup to the tag in to Kenny Omega. And I love how Kenny and the Bucks milk the shit out of this first tag in. And then a funny thing happens on commentary when like Kenny's about to get tagged in, and then like Jim Ross asks Don Callis if he's crying. Jim Ross still has it, everyone. Oh, so the shirt is called a compression top, and Kenny's like a bit slower. He starts off with like a more entertainer style of like wrestling. He does deliver better punches than Jon Moxley though. They bounce off of Dragon Lee. But when he tries to go for the You Can't Escape, he doesn't bounce off correctly and he fails the move. I'm hoping this is like a thing that they're like doing like a story or something. Because if he really couldn't do the move, he shouldn't have come back right away. But if this is like a story thing where Kenny's slowly returning to form, he's like Kratos at the start of every God of War, this is okay. But he then tags in and then participates in a trios move with the Bucks after. So they cut the ring in half, they just keep destroying Dragon Lee, and then very, very weakly, he gets the tag to Andrade. Then we get an Andrade and Kenny Omega face to face. And then after like a bout of cheating, after we're teased of like the one-on-one match to come, Rush attacks and then they work on Kenny's shoulder. Like the heels they are, and how Dragon Lee should have started it. Like they actually worked on the shoulder with the supporter. And then I love the work being done here. It's not like spectacular. It's a bunch of like rest holds, a bunch of like submissions working on Kenny's shoulder, Andrade and Rush outside, like taunting with the belts, as well as kicking the Bucks' ass. And then they cut the ring in half, making Kenny look as weak as Dragon Lee did at the start. And then a thing happens that made it clear that this was a work. That this was 100% a work. Okay, so we have this part where they have Kenny Omega on their corner. And then, like, they start removing the shoulder support. They fucking take off the shoulder support. And then Kenny starts being agile again. He, like, rolls off of Andrade's back, rolls into the tag to Nick Jackson. So, yeah, 100% of work. If this was, like, real, they wouldn't be removing the shoulder support at all. Like, I don't think Kenny's the guy to, like, risk his career like Cody did. I think Kenny's injuries, plural, are, like, a lot worse. So, yeah, this is, like, definitely a work. And then we get maybe one of the spots of the match, and it's such an indie spot. It's where Matt Jackson goes for, like, the multiple Northern Light suplexes on Dragon Lee. But then he's caught by Rush. They set him up for, like, a double suplex. Then Nick Jackson enters. They set him up for, like, the double suplex, and then so forth. Andrade enters, and then finally Kenny enters, and then they do like the trio suplex. I think this is the first time I've seen this like super indie spot in AEW. And I don't know if they just hate Dragon Lee, but he like got his ass kicked for like 90% of the match. He ate all of the devastating moves and then ate the pin in the end. But it does show him being like a scrappy babyface that like tries to escape but can't. There's just like 300% in sync trios wrestlers in the ring. Because he also eats this like other candidate for spots of the match that I will explain later. But yeah, every time Rush and Andrade enter, they always like regain control. They don't get like a lot of the beatings. It's weird. I don't know if like they're trying to keep the guys strong or if Andrade and Rush don't get along with Omega and the Bucks, but I don't know, like Dragon Lee is just like taking too much punishment for my liking. It could be they're just trying to make like the main members of Ingobernable strong because they're taking him out of the tournament right away. That could be it. But yeah, they like destroy the shit out of everyone they face in the ring. Like the Bucks have no chance against Andrade and Rush. Like they only regain control because they tag in Dragon Lee and then he like fucks it up. Matt Jackson kicks him towards Andrade. I think this like fuels their hatred for him in the end. And then finally, Andrade and Rush get their asses kicked when Kenny Omega like single-handedly takes them all out. And only because of this do the Bucks finally get their hits in on Andrade and Rush and have it hurt. And so then we get like another one of like the spot of the match candidates. It's like the power bomb with the double enziguri, and then it's followed up with a senton by Matt Jackson and double enziguris from the outside. And then they fucking triple super kick him. Guaranteed top 3 spot. And then they do some outside dives, and then we get like Kenny Omega teasing his Terminator outside dive. Like they really milk this shit right here. They milk it and then Dragon Lee spoils it. And then Kenny starts selling. We get a lot more storytelling. And for you fucking old dudes like fucking Jim Cornette, Disco Inferno, or like just everyone who hates the Elite, go fuck yourselves. They're telling stories right now. He keeps falling over and like can't do his outside dive. He's not Kenny Omega yet. And this might be a spot of the match. And just when he's about to do it again, Jose just pulls his legs from under him. And then they set him up to like kill him or something. It's like an outside dive by Dragon Lee to Kenny Omega, who's being set up by Jose and Rush while like sitting on the barricade. And then Dragon Lee hits it. He takes Kenny out. Like, this is a really long jump. They like go to the other side of the audience barricade. Like they reach the crowd. They actually hit some people on the crowd. And then we get the second "This is awesome" chant of the match. They like disconnect the barricade and then return to the ring to a near fall. And this is when I finally knew that they're not burying Dragon Lee. They're like actually showcasing him a lot. Not only is he taking beatings, but he's doing this like incredible moves. They're effectively keeping him babyface. So Dragon Lee Hurricanrana's Nick Jackson off of the apron to the outside. And then Andrade does like a moonsault where he lands on his feet and then does another moonsault, like a standing moonsault on Kenny Omega because Kenny tries to roll out. Fucking amazing. Holy shit. Might be the best match on the card. This beats out Danielson. So Kenny kicks out, and then Andrade does the finisher, like his hammerlock DDT on him. But then Matt Jackson pushes Rush on the pin. And so Andrade tags in Dragon Lee to eat the pin, basically. Kenny sells his injuries after doing a V-trigger, and then he does like the jankiest one-winged angel ever for the win. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. Number 3 is the trio suplex. It's incredibly indie and really funny when done on TV. And it's like a really fun spot. Number 2 is the teasing of Kenny's outside dive that like gets spoiled all of the time. Or like you could like put in here all of the times Kenny sells his injury. All of the times he fails to do the move, including the one-winged angel. Some really good storytelling here. This is what storytelling looks like. And then for the number one spot of the match, it's Dragon Lee's outside dive. Like, no question about it. They go to the crowd, and then this was like all set up by like 4 people. And then they do it to the guy who's like allegedly injured still. So yeah, really good spot. I think this is the highest spot of the match too. You're giving the front row seat crowd like their money's worth. And then they alter the like topography of the entire arena. They detach the barricade, they move it in order to like do the move. So yeah, that's number 1. And as for this match, this is a TV main event, pay-per-view main event type of show. It's lower than the Danielson versus Garcia match just because they do like a lot of like storytelling here instead of like the more high impact stuff. And we also had like a disproportionate amount of damage taken by Dragon Lee. And so yeah, after the match, we had like Kenny and Dragon Lee hug it out. They're still friends from New Japan. Facción Ingobernables then enter the ring. They try to console Dragon Lee, but then fake out. They attack him. Like, you could see Andrade like undoing his mask as they like look as if they're trying to help him out. And I can't believe the crowd like didn't notice this. Like, it was clear what was happening. And so Andrade hits the hammerlock DDT on Dragon Lee, and then they take off his mask. And so I think this is a feud. I think La Facción Ingobernables are gonna get a third man, and they're gonna cost the Elite the titles. That's like how I feel. I think it's gonna come down to the Elite against the House of Black, and then Ingobernables are gonna help out the House of Black. Because like clearly we're setting something up here. The Elite are gonna defend Dragon Lee's honor, and this is gonna piss off La Facción Ingobernables. And it's setting up to like Kenny Omega against Andrade El Idolo. If that turns out to be what's gonna happen, if that's gonna be the case, Tony Khan rises up the ranks as like Booker of the Year. But if not, and then the Elite just win right away, I'm gonna have a problem with that. So yeah, I'm gonna review the post-match interview too. Like, why not? This ending here felt a little bit incomplete. So thankfully, we get like a YouTube video of Kenny's post-match speech. It's basically him putting over AEW, promising variety as was promised at the start. He sort of ribs Kip Sabian, reminds everyone that he's in the crowd with the box on his head, new gimmick. He plays heel, then plays face, and basically it's him like thanking the fans and stuff, and being the face of AEW. Because like honestly, we started watching because of this dude, and not because of CM Punk, like Bryan Danielson. Like, when NXT was running against AEW, they got like 1 million viewers every week, or like more often than they do now. And that was without Punk and Danielson. That was with Kenny as champion and Hangman Page as his main rival. So yeah, really nice promo here. Didn't see what happened with Dragon Lee, but he's probably gonna stay babyface. I hope he stays in AEW, and hopefully this turns into a feud with the Elite against La Facción Ingobernables. So yeah, that's the show. Here are the match ratings. And yeah, I'm probably gonna finish the TNA Emergence review. Hopefully someone still watches that. And then I'm gonna review Wrestle Peter Pan by DDT. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you do not know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos. And please, watch my shit.